Oh, just rips at your sternum. I can feel the heart expanding. Yes, that's fascinating. I'm like, wow, that's wild. 50 times that people have witnessed me being that which I'm judging. Dear God, thank you so much for bringing us together today. Thank you for allowing us to switch out our pressure for a sense of play. Thank you for allowing us to let bygones be bygones and allow what is wanting to experience itself to come our way. Hey, you, and welcome to this very special conversation episode of Grace Led Leaders, the place for multi passionate entrepreneurs to come and scale your sales and deepen your grace. My name is Navdeep, and after speaking in 16 countries on every continent of the world, I've realized something that's really quite peculiar, and I think you'll find it quite curious too. What's curious is how we chase. At least I chase. I find myself chasing every day. Sometimes I'm chasing a goal, other times I'm chasing an opportunity, a person, a vibe, a frequency, an experience I'm chasing. And what's curious to me is how can the frequencies of chase and grace coexist? Or can they? What do I mean by grace? By grace, I really mean the love of a higher power. I was actually going to call this channel, this movement, God led leaders. But I realized how different people have different concepts of God. To some people, it's monotheistic, meaning there's one God and this God decides what's wrong or right. To other people, it's polytheistic, meaning there are multiple gods. So, for example, in Hinduism. But it goes even further. I didn't know, in Greek mythology and Egyptian mythology, they're also multiple gods. But apparently, there's a difference in the polytheism of that world and the polytheism of India as well, and Hinduism. And then we have schools of thought like Buddhism, where, from my understanding, it's like, yeah, God's cool, but really it's about the focus is what we do in this world and achieving nirvana, right? And so I realized there are lots of different elements of God. God being, the story of origination. How did the world come into be? Then the story of what we call operation, the 5 pillars of Islam or the 10 commandments, or I think it's the 8 spokes of Dharma in Buddhism, you could say, and then the 4 parts to union in Hinduism, and then the 5Ks in Sikhism, and etc. So it's kind of like we have origination, which is the history of the universe. Adam or Adam and Eve. For some reason, we also have this peculiar obsession with who is the one, who is the Messiah. Was it Jesus? And then did Muhammad come and say, Jesus was a prophet, but actually the Quran is the thing. Moses was in a lot of them. Who was the guru in the East, you could say? And it's fascinating how this obsession with who, what, where is the one, I can really feel that within myself. This mental construct of looking for the one thing or the opportunity or the person or the right way or the truth. And maybe it's just my brain trying to find some sort of certainty in this crazy human experience. Because frankly, I want to say the truth is, you see, it's so ingrained, isn't it? More ingrained than Nutri-Grain, my big brother Arvin's favorite cereal. Like cereal, not TV cereal. And what's up with everybody being into Korean drama? Have you ever noticed that? The sound's okay, Brian? Cool, awesome, thank you. Big love to Brian. Found out he was a guitarist too. Pretty cool. The champion behind the camera. We should get you in the camera at some point. So yeah, it's been really interesting to understand my need for clarity, my need for certainty. And it's peculiar because people come to me for certainty and clarity. But my friend Adelina, she was mentioning how she doesn't actually want insights. She's in love with the unknown. And of course, I found myself projecting on her, oh my gosh, what are you actually doing with your life, etc. I didn't say these things, but I thought them. And to other people, I'm the not the epitome, yeah, the epitome of dancing and uncertainty. People are like, Navdeep, what are you doing with your life? Don't you have more certainty and conviction? In fact, this morning I was having such a beautiful like FaceTime with my it was WhatsApp. We were having a WhatsApp video call with my father and my mother. And for those of y'all watching this in 2365, just WhatsApp used to be this like video call platform, right? Before we could hear each other's thoughts again, telepathy. And it was really beautiful. He sent me some content ideas for podcasts, but I was like, I don't actually know what the podcast is going to be about till 6 minutes beforehand. Yes, I've used AI to generate 30 podcast episodes. Yes, people give me great structures. Yes, they're templates. And frankly, when I sat down on this chair, I knew I'd do a prayer, which we did at the start. And other than that, I don't know. And part of me is like, oh, it's just intuitive. And it's like, just pulsating through me. But part of me also knows I've been speaking for over a decade. My dad put it so sweetly today. He said, Navdeep, you've practiced the chords, you've learned and become proficient at the system, and now you're improvising. Did you know? I love listening to gospel music of all sorts, be it Qawwali of the Islamic faith, Kirtan and Bhajans of Hinduism and Sikhism, or like gospel music of Christianity. And what's devotion really turns me on. And what's fascinating, I just said that, naughty. So what I was going to say is, yeah, it turns me on, it enlivens me. This is also a very interesting thing, isn't it? Like, how come eros, which is the Greek word for like a sexual energy, is so frowned upon in so many traditional religions? And you know what else is interesting? Where did we even come up with the term traditional religion? Like, I don't know exactly how long humans have been around for, but I'm making this video in 2025, and again, I don't know how long. So let's say, so I believe Christianity came before Islam, right? So let's take it. So these religions have been around for 2025 years, okay? And then I know that the Torah and Judaism predates these religions, right? And I know Hinduism is very old as well. But like, what used to be the Islam and the Christianity and the Sikhism and the Buddhism of previous millennia? So if like in 2000 BC, before Christ, what was there? And what will be there 2,000 years from now? Will these 5 major religions still be the major religions because of social media and I guess the ease of longevity? Will we have crusades or wars in the name of faith at the level at which they used to be? I don't know. And so it really fascinates me, and I'll even say it. I remember I was in the line at the airport having a conversation with someone saying, we follow this faith because our prophet or our leader is the final one. I said, that's interesting because in this faith, that leader says they're the final one. And hypothetically, what stops me from saying I'm the final one? And then there's also this research that backs up about how the choice of religion that you decide the weight of where you grew up is so heavy in deciding that. Interesting, isn't it? I mean, obviously, religion has a place, it serves us. And I have a curiosity around its function and its, what's its words? It's reach? No, it's breathe. Oh, I feel nervous talking about this. I'm even a bit scared because these are questions that I have all the time, but I'm like, oh my gosh, is somebody going to watch this and be a keyboard warrior and cancel me? Is someone going to be like, oh, how could you say that? It's sinful and blah, 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 and send you a death threat and all these kind of things. I fear because I know even within me, there is this reactivity of when it comes to topics like politics or religion or gender, even just challenging my viewpoints, it's like, how do I disarm this person as quickly as possible? Notice how I use the word disarm. Even that, if we think of arm as in like a fascinating, isn't it? And I'm curious as to why this is. Why is there so much charge? Why is there so much umph? Like, in fact, there's this saying, never talk about politics or religion on a first date or in a first encounter or at all. And why is that? Why is there such a charge? If I were to guess into it right now, from my perspective, people hate being wrong. And I think we're all just trying our very best to make sense of this reality that maybe, just maybe, we can never quite make sense of. And this submission to not being able to make sense of something is a lot harder, I believe, than subscribing to something that says, hey, no, this is the word of God. This is the ultimate word. This is the infinite. It is literal. It is black and white. This is it. I remember having a conversation with somebody on a cruise. It was my first cruise. And they were concerned about the upcoming election in America. And I was like, oh, it makes sense why so many people are Trump supporters, because he has conviction in a world that is so unconvicted. He provides certainty. Now, whether this certainty is based on false or truth is a different conversation. But people want a father. They want that energy of, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, we have certainty. So maybe I should say people want certainty. One of our human needs, as per Tony Robbins, right? And what's fascinating is that need for certainty can overwrite so many things. It can override somebody being caught up in like sexual assault scandals, in being caught up in like corruption and tax evasion scandals and all these kind of things. Similarly, whether it's Trump or somebody else, I have a dream gives a level of certainty that, we've been struggling with this civil rights movements for so long. I have a plan. Or Gandhi, this is how we're going to free India. Was it JFK, John F. Kennedy, who said, like, we're going to the moon? We're going to the moon. We are going to the moon. And so a lot of people talk about the benefit of certainty, And today I'm curious about the cost of certainty. Two days ago, I posted on my Facebook and my Instagram, which are social media platforms at this time, depending on when you're watching this. And I posted about how a little while ago I was flying from Mumbai to Bali, and in Bali I was waiting for the baggage. You know, like when you get off a plane and then you wait for the baggage, and you're like, oh my gosh, when's it gonna come? And you're just thinking, when's it gonna happen? When's it gonna happen? When's it gonna happen? What's really interesting is I remember a year ago, I was like, oh my gosh, why is this taking so long? And then I ended up bumping into Tony Robbins. Like, wow, that's really cool. So at least annually, I have like an amazing experience that is tied to waiting for baggage at an airport. Sometimes when we have a bigger break from our baggage, it creates more space for grace, doesn't it? Ooh. Let's say that again. Sometimes when we have a bigger space from our baggage, it creates more space for grace. Again, space being the love of a higher power. And this love can come, in my belief, through a feeling. It can come through a sensation. It can come through your heart cracking wide open. It can come through receiving an insight, a download, an intuitive epiphany. It can come through having a eureka moment, a breakthrough. It can come through having clarity. It can come through being present. The word grace is my best articulation in this moment to explain a higher love. And sometimes it's felt directly with the connector. Sometimes it's felt through other creations as well, or felt through, yeah. So again, we're at Bali airport, right? And I hear this voice in my head, and for the first time, I hear my daughter speaking to me. Now, mind you, the first time I heard about your children speaking to you before they're on Earth, and when I'm recording this video, I'm a single man, right? And excited to meet my wifey. When I had first heard the concept of your to-be child speaking to you, I thought it was crazy, like WTF. But then one thing led to another, and now I'm more open to it. And I posted this on my Facebook, and I got a lot of like encouraging, reassuring comments. And then one person who, you know, I was co-presenter at an event like years ago, and she was in the audience, and we never really gelled. And she commented on it, and it wasn't in the tone of reassurance. It wasn't in the tone of like, here's a resource. It wasn't in the tone of support. It was a tone. It was in the tone of WTF. And immediately when I felt that energy from her, almost questioning my certainty, I instinctively thought, how do I disarm her? Again, keyword is arm. Like, and so I did it with humor. I did it with elegance, I like to believe. But it still came from a place of protection. My friend Roscoe, he posted something on Instagram, bracing, almost this bracing of like, bracing is this I never heard of the term before, bracing. I had heard of it from like sacred sexuality stuff and your sexual blueprint stuff. There was that, remember that show on Netflix, Goop, I think it was, Gwyneth Paltrow? Anyways, so bracing is this state of tension where you're almost expecting things to go wrong and you're in a state of protectiveness. And so if your energy is being put into that bracing or that sense of protectedness, like, where is the energy that's taking up that? Where is it costing you energy elsewhere? Where else could you be using that energy? Where more resourcefully can you be channeling that? Where can you be focusing that? Can you be leveraging that and optimizing your energy flow? Because where energy goes, excellence grows. Oh, that's a nice one. Where energy goes, excellence grows. And so I find myself exerting so much energy in this pursuit of certainty. Sometimes it's a seeking and an understanding, and hey, how do I use this template or this chat GPT or this structure or this book or this flow? In fact, there was a time where I used to teach in high schools and sometimes universities this kind of methodology that was birthed at Stanford University, where people would spend 300 grand and then 5 years later be dissatisfied with their careers, and so they created this whole called design your life, design your life. Even just that word, like yes, there's a term of intentionality, there's this essence of intentionality with it. But for me, it was really certainty. Certainty meaning I want to know what WTF is going on. I used to teach this. And so career design, they called it. And so what I'm coming to realize live in this conversation is there are pros and cons to certainty. And perhaps that's why people can get so sensitive around discussing religion or the origins of the world or the right way to live, because fear of uncertainty. In fact, I know a mentor of mine, he was so certain that this one prophet was the only way to God. In fact, when I said I wanted to name the brand God's Led Leaders, he was like, which God? And so do you see how that's a paradigm in that the different gods are separate? And I would judge him for this closed-mindedness. But then I realized that I had closed-mindedness around God not all being the same and not all coming from the same source. In my way, it was that is the truth. God is the same, just different expressions, different relationships, same source. So do you see how in that moment where I judged him for his closed-mindedness, I also had closed-mindedness at the same time? Confession. Last night, I went home and I had a great conversation. And then I was watching on my laptop some like business mentors I used to look up to. I really used to aspire to be like. And I also learned about the term individuation a while ago. You may have come across it, but I didn't realize that for people with autism like myself, sometimes individuation can come later in life. Individuation, so that we're on the same page, is the process of finding your own unique identity, voice, and who you are. And part of me has heard the saying that sometimes you have to meet who you're not to realize who you are. That's cool. But part of me also sees myself throwing rocks, being like, oh, this person's so boring. I don't want to be like them. Or this person's so closed-minded. I don't want to be like them. And it's almost like a rejection of the other person or a judgment of the other person in order for me to feel more certain about who I am. And I know this sounds extreme. Just play with me for a bit. If we think about terrorism or religious extremism or superiority, that's almost the same ingredient, just at 1 million x the quantity. Because part of me really hates superiority and authority. But I can see now that I apply these same things, just in different contexts and in different quantities. This is a really beautiful exercise called holographics. And one of the most confronting parts of it is, I'd say that I was judging this person for, let's say, being shallow. Yep, shallow, or being closed. And then it's like list 50 times that you've been closed. Oh, it just rips at your sternum. I can feel the heart expanding. Yes, that's fascinating. I'm like, wow, that's wild. 50 times that people have witnessed me being that which I'm judging. But at the same time, isn't it normal to judge? How can you be discerning? How can you be intentional? How can you be intentional without judging? What does it mean to judge? What is the difference between discernment and judgment? Is there a difference? Hmm. Hmm. What's the through line? Where is my chase of certainty holding me back? Oh. Can I tell you a secret? I think part of the reason that I'm so drawn to this space of mentoring and personal and spiritual development and frameworks and teaching is it gives me a feeling and a sense of certainty. And what I'm realizing now is let's play a game. Imagine now we're playing a game right now. By now, you can agree that imagine a space whereby, yes, you were shown some things that worked. Yes, you were shown wisdom from other people making mistakes. But also, you were loved through the uncertainty. You were loved through the melting of who you are. You were loved through your messiness. You were loved through your chaos. You were loved through your evolving purpose. You were loved through your wrestling with who it is that you are. You were loved through what is it you're here to bring into the world. You were loved through your imperfection. You were loved through your your evolution. You were loved through your not quite knowing how to articulate things. You were loved through your indecision. You were loved through your, is this really what I'm meant to do? You were loved through it all. Because I remember Dr. Dinesh, he won a really big award in Australia, and he said it is the safety to fail that gives us the courage to dream. It's the failure to safe that gives us the courage to dream. It's the dream to courage that gives us the safe to failure. What did these words even mean? Who knows? The trained speaker in me was about to say, if there's one thing that I know, Oprah has a book that is called Things I Know for Sure. What do we know for sure, eh? I love Oprah. What a vibe. You get an iPad. You get an iPad. I'd like to wrap up this conversation by leaving you with this question. Where is the chase, the craving? Where is the chase for certainty holding you back? Where is the chase for certainty holding you back? Thank you.